Welcome to Pennsylvania Newsmakers. I'm your host today, Gene Barr. Today we're going to be talking with the chairman of the House Appropriations Committee here in Pennsylvania, and another guest who's going to talk about the state of higher education in the Commonwealth, and that starts right after this.
Welcome to the fast-paced and unrehearsed weekly discussion featuring the leaders who help shape your world. Join us as we address the issues that impact you each and every day. This is Pennsylvania Newsmakers. And now, here's your host.
Welcome back to Pennsylvania Newsmakers. My first guest today is State Representative Jordan Harris, who is represents part of Philadelphia, the 186th, I think I got that right, yep. Which is South Philly and parts of Southwest Philly, which we used to call out around the refineries, but they're not there anymore, so we can't use that reference point. He's also chairman of House Appropriations, which gets very interesting this time of year with the budget coming up. So, Representative Harris, thanks for being on with us today. Greatly appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. Glad to be with you.
Yes. So a couple things that we want to talk a little bit about today. We had hoped to have Representative Grove on, but he unfortunately had a family emergency come up, which these things happen, and we certainly understand that. But one of the things we wanted to talk about on there was the fact that the two of you, despite the fact of pretty diverse, different parts of the state, different parties, et cetera, have over the years formed a relationship, which has allowed you guys to work on some stuff. And on this show in the past, we've talked a bit about how that need for civility exists tremendously these days, and you guys found a way to do that. How did that come about, and how did you guys maneuver that and work that to get stuff done for the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania?
Well, Gene, for me, I've always seen my role in government as trying to make things happen for the people that I represent. And when I came into the Capitol some 13 years ago now, Democrats were in a minority, so you were forced to work in a bipartisan fashion if you wanted to get things to the governor's desk. Now, even with us being in the majority, I think it is still important for folks to put party aside and understand what the true value of being a Pennsylvanian means, and recognizing that where we agree, we should work together. Now, look, we're going to have disagreements. We're going to have differing of opinions. And here's the thing. We have difference of opinions even in my own caucus. So you come to these positions with different life experiences and whatnot, and that makes you think differently on issues. But when you find the things that you agree on, you should work together. So I've been happy to do that. I've done that with Seth Grove when he was chairman, the Republican chair of Appropriations, and we worked together on that. I've also done that with my colleague, Representative Cheryl Delosier, on a whole host of things in the criminal justice space.
Yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about that, but I think people tend to forget the size of Pennsylvania's state house. There's 203 of you, so when you say not unusual to find differences even among your party, Pennsylvania's a big state. A lot of diverse areas, a lot of rural, obviously a lot of urban, so it's not a surprise that you wind up finding some of that.
I mean, think about it this way, Gene. I represent Philadelphia County, right? So there are issues and concerns that are germane to the city of Philadelphia. But you're a Southeast guy, so you understand it. You go right outside of Philadelphia to the counties, and although they're so close, they have issues and concerns that are gravely different. And then, when I go to the central part of the state, when I go to Western PA, when I go to the real rural parts of Pennsylvania, they have totally different issues.
Yes, completely.
And because of those life experiences, people come to these jobs with different perspectives. No one is not necessarily right or wrong on certain issues. I mean, there's certain things that I think are fundamental, but they're different perspectives. And I think when you look at not who's right or who's wrong, but how to get to a solution, I think that's when government is working at its best.
And that need to cooperate and to get to the solution is even more critical now, isn't it? Because of the fact that right now this 203-member House is divided 101 to 101 with the unfortunate tragic death of one of your members from out in Western PA, which that's going to remain there until we get into a special election, which probably will be around the primary, I guess, right?
No, special election will be in March.
It will be in March.
It will be in March. And let me first, I've done it before, but I want to express my condolences to the Gergely family, the family of the late Representative Matt Gergely, to his wife and his children.
Yes.
And we are continuing to pray for them. As someone who recently lost, my spouse, I can't imagine, the pain that his wife is going through with them having children. So we continue to pray for them. But to your point, it makes our ability to work together even more important. Here's what I've learned traveling across the Commonwealth. People don't really care about your political party affiliation. They just want to know that you're doing something to make their lives a little bit better. So when I go to rural Pennsylvania, and I see people who can't get to certain places because they need a bridge fixed. They don't necessarily care if it's a Democrat or Republican who brings the infrastructure funding. They just want it to get done.
Fixed.
They just want the bridge fixed.
Yeah.
And when we think about those issues that are very important to people in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, they're agnostic a lot of times. And look, we get caught up sometimes on the social issues, and that's where a lot of our division comes in. But there's so many other issues, what I call kitchen table issues, the things that people are talking about at their kitchen table, at their dining room table. Those are the things that we need to be focused on.
We're going to cut away, and we're going to come back and talk about a couple of other issues. So thanks. We'll be back here in a few moments.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the Pennsylvania Chamber of Business and Industry, the statewide voice of business, and by the Pennsylvania State Education Association, bringing the power of a great education to our schools, our students, and our communities. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Pennsylvania Highway Information Association, the go-to source to learn about transportation projects and issues. Please visit pahighwayinfo.org. And by the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association. Business in Pennsylvania is our business.
Welcome back to Pennsylvania Newsmakers. We're here with State Representative Jordan Harris. Now, we've talked a little bit about a couple of other issues. One of the things I do want to touch on is something I know is near and dear to your heart, which you have become a national leader on, which is criminal justice reform. I know I had a little bit of work in there, too, and it's amazing when somebody says to you, how would you feel if the worst day of your life you were judged by for the rest of your life? And you and a couple of your colleagues decided a few years ago to undertake what became the first what's called clean slate here in the United States, and changed the trajectory of that issue, and again became national leaders. Why did you decide that that was going to be something you were going to pick up and move forward on? Well,
listen, it was very important to me. I mean, I grew up in a community where I know people personally who have been infected by the criminal justice system. I remember one time actually going inside of a prison and seeing somebody that I had went to elementary school with. She's now out and living her life and doing well. But when you have those type of interaction, it changes your perspective on things. I've taken many of my colleagues inside behind the walls, and once they see what's going on in prison, to see folks, they talk to folks, it literally changed their perspective on how they view things. I was at the inauguration for a new Attorney General, Dave Sunday. And Dave said something that I 100% agree with, is that you have to have accountability, but there has to be redemption, because the super majority of people who are in our carceral system, they're coming home. So for me, I would go to the store and I would hear guys talk about how they wanted to get into the economy, they wanted to work, but something they did 10, 15 years ago was stopping them from doing that.
Exactly.
So clean slate, and my work with Representative Cheryl Delosier, who's a very good friend of mine, Senator Williams, and at that time, Senator Scott Wagner. That was the first of its kind in the nation to automatically seal records. But not only that, what Clean Slate did in the chamber when you were there, were very involved in it. It actually started the trajectory of us doing criminal justice work in the Commonwealth, because you did Clean Slate, we did professional licensing reform, and then we followed up with probation reform. So I'm grateful for that work.
And there's so much done, and you brought up an important point that people don't always get, which is, and this is, we've looked at workforce issues. This is a workforce issue.
100%.
This is a hurdle that people take, and at a time when we need as many people in the workforce as we can, you've got people who, because of a mistake committed 15 years ago, nonviolent mistake, were not able to take advantage of it, as you've said. Your work has changed that. Are there a couple other things that you want to do moving forward? That issue's not done yet, I'm sure, for you.
Oh, absolutely. There's other things we want to do. We want to look at clearancy rates, work with law enforcement to talk about clearancy rates. We have to, if you want want a safer community, we got to make sure that we're clearing cases. Also want to look at what does our reentry services look like? What are we doing to ensure not only that we're cleaning up people's records, but that we're connecting them with gainful employment? Listen, we've had folks who've been in our system who were tax burdens. We now want to transform them into taxpayers. But we have to do our job in helping to make sure that we're making the connection for them. It benefits the Commonwealth to have people stay home and not recidivate and go back into our system. So those are just, a few things in that space that we're going to be looking at in the near future.
Absolutely. And again, thank you for coming on with us today. Greatly appreciate it. We hope you'll come back again. It's good to see you.
Always.
All right. Very good. Thank you, Representative Harris. Okay. When we come back, we're going to talk to somebody about some higher education issues, and we'll do that after these messages.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by Cross-State Credit Union Association. Credit unions, where people are worth more than money. To find a credit union that is right for you, go to ibelong.org. And by the Energy Association of Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania's energy information source. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Association of Pennsylvania State College and University Faculties, representing the faculty and coaches who are devoted to providing quality public higher education for Pennsylvania's college students.
Welcome back to Pennsylvania Newsmakers. My guest is Dr. Ken Mash, who is the, I believe, president of APSCUF. With APSCUF, tough to say. Association of Pennsylvania State University and College Faculties. I think I got that right.
That's close enough. It's the Association of Pennsylvania State College.
That was the P part.
And university faculty.
Tell me what that is.
So we are the union that represents the faculty at the now 10 state-owned universities in Pennsylvania. We are, really the people's universities across the Commonwealth.
Okay. And you're the president of the organization. I think you were saying you've been there 2 different stints, and you're also, or were, a professor.
I was. I am still a professor.
Still a professor.
Political science at East Stroudsburg University.
Got it. So I know that one of the things, obviously, you guys are looking at, because you're paying the cost, in addition to the quality of the education, one of the big things is, are we going to have the dollars to provide the quality and also to have the people? So what has happened recently in recent years in terms of higher ed funding?
So the last few years have been, relatively good years for the system after many, many bad years of funding. So we have increased our funding, and it's been bipartisan. I want to say that both sides of the aisle have supported our universities over the last few years. So those increases have allowed the state system to keep its tuition frozen for 7 straight years, which is, in the world of higher education, almost unheard of that would be the case. But it could only be done in partnership with the legislature, with the General Assembly, and, of course, with the governors.
Yes. What do you see this year? I know what you're hoping for. What do you realistically think might happen?
Well, again, I think that the system is asking for another 6.5% increase, which, again, would allow it to, they say, to freeze tuition, again, which of course would be great. I think the families in Pennsylvania deserve to get the best deal that they could possibly get. So we're real hopeful about that, and we've had in the last couple of years some very important and, again, bipartisan support for some debt relief for some dorms that were built, in 2010, 2011, when we were at peak enrollment, but to help us deal with the bond payments and, what to do with those buildings.
What's enrollment look like now? You talked about peak enrollment in 10 and 11, I believe you said. So where's enrollment now?
So we're I believe that we're right around like 85,000. It's
been declining?
It has been declining, and that's not just our problem.
That's a nationwide issue.
That is a nationwide issue that's driven by the decline in high school graduation rates. So there is fewer students. But I will say it's been kind of sharper in Pennsylvania.
Really?
And I think it was sharper in Pennsylvania for a number of reasons. One is that, again, the tuition and the fees and everything were relatively high.
Okay.
We were like in the, at the very bottom of all the key measures. And we're still floating around the bottom as far as
even with the freezes, we're still
as far
there.
as support for public higher education in Pennsylvania. So there's that, and then unfortunately, or fortunately for some, we are living in a very competitive environment as far as trying to attract students, and and it used to be a battle like within Pennsylvania to try and attract students. But our surrounding states and even states further away are offering incredible deals for students to come there. So they'll say you can come tuition free. We have New York with their scholarship programs, and we know of, and I've spoken to people who know of Pennsylvania students who go to New York, work for a year, get residency, and then they can go to college for free in New York. And New York's not the only one. So
and I know some states have utilized, say, lottery proceeds in order to provide state, which gives them certainly a major advantage.
So they look for some, steady stream of income in order to be able to do that. But I wanted to add to that again.
Good, let me just hit that when we come back.
Absolutely.
We got to cut for a break here. So we'll be back in a few moments to continue on the conversation.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Pennsylvania Medical Society. Inspired physicians committed to the good health of Pennsylvanians and the advancement of the practice of medicine. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by Pennsylvania American Water. We keep life flowing across the Keystone State.
Welcome back to Pennsylvania Newsmakers. We're talking with Dr. Ken Mash, who's the president of the Association of Pennsylvania State University and College Faculty. So I know you were finishing something up when we cut the break. So
so we were talking about other states trying to attract students, and again, in a bipartisan fashion, last year there was an increase in scholarships, the creation of scholarships. Senator Pittman particularly was working on that, and then the governor was in on it too. And that's why that's some money that's going to him, but it's why we support the Pennsylvania Promise.
Got it. Let's talk about that. What is the Pennsylvania Promise, and why is this something that you guys are really promoting? Yeah,
so we've been pushing this for a long time now, and we've had the aid of Representative Harris, who was just on the show, and Senator Vincent Hughes, who have sponsored legislation. Last year it went through the House Education Committee, so every year we make a little bit more progress. But essentially, the Pennsylvania Promise would pay for the first 2 years of college at a community college, and it would pay for 4 years of tuition at our universities, and for the state-related universities, it would give students the equivalent of if they went to one of our universities, like a voucher for, for that amount of money. And the reason why this is so important is not just, we need to be able to keep more students in Pennsylvania. They're leaving Pennsylvania. So we need to give them a reason to go to our universities, get educated, be able to get good jobs, and stay here in Pennsylvania. And, I think there's also, I think, a growing understanding that, yes, we need to attract even students from outside of Pennsylvania with the hopes that they stay. And with our universities, students do stay. So our students are the students that go to college, then they try and get jobs in Pennsylvania.
So you used a couple other terms just so everyone watching understands. We've got 3 state-supported schools, which are Penn State, Temple, and Lincoln. And then how many those are the state-related, and then state-supported. How many do we have?
In addition to that, there's Pitt, which is also a state-related university.
Made sure we had that.
And we have our 10 state system schools, which include schools like Shippensburg and Westchester and Commonwealth University.
Got it. So you're also, the system's also looking for a new chancellor. Dan Greenstein has left already. So how's that progressing?
Well, I like to say first, I think we were fortunate that we have in the interim Chris Ferrantino, who was the president at Westchester, who graciously agreed to step into the role. So we're not in a period where things are shaky or anything. We're in good hands.
Good.
My understanding is that they still have the application. They're still getting applications for people and encouraging more people to apply. And I think the hope is, and I think it's Dr. Ferrantino's hope too, that the process will be completed by the end of the summer.
As we finish up, we come down to the end of the show. The big discussion, whether it comes up in workforce issues or whatever, is what is the value of higher ed? Does education have, this is a very long, could be a long one, but an inherent value in and of itself? Can we, from a workforce basis, perhaps do a better job of aligning what students are studying with what might result in a productive career? Is that something that you guys think would be of value? Is there more that should be done on that? Let's say that.
Well, we think that there's more that should be done for higher education all around. And of course, we have a very broad understanding of what higher ed does and what it does for people and what it does for the nation when people get an advanced degree. But I know that Chancellor Greenstein did make a big effort to try and pay attention to the needs of the workforce and to gear programs to that. But what sometimes gets lost is when we talk to employers, we also see that they want the kinds of skills which are kind of softer also. So, when we talk about general education courses, liberal arts, and things like that, they want students who can be versatile, who can think critically, who can write well still. So I think higher ed plays a critical role, and I think the future says that we're going to need a lot more skilled workers in Pennsylvania than we currently are on pace.
Absolutely. So how many of the schools, in your view, have modified some of the curriculum to do that? We talk a lot about what those soft skills are, which is sometimes just the ability to interview, as you mentioned, the ability to write, the ability to engage with others as part of a team. Are more and more schools bringing that into the curriculum?
Well, I think that's always a part of higher education. I think it's been, there's been more attention paid to some fields. Like we have a shortage of teachers. We need to be able to train more teachers.
Yes.
We have a need for nurses and other health professionals. We need to make those changes in order to be able to prepare. So that, we really are, and again, we're working with the General Assembly and the governor to do that.
Ken, thank you. Thanks for being on. Look forward to seeing you again. Thanks for joining us. Thank you for joining Pennsylvania Newsmakers. We look forward to seeing you again next week. Thank you.